Look, this morning I had the privilege to bring together the shadow spokespeople of the National Party into the next Parliament, and we had a very productive meeting about planning the way forward for the National Party in being another opposition party in this next Parliament. During that period, I had a brief meeting with Sussan Ley, and she made an offer to reconvene her party room to discuss the four policy areas that the National Party demand as part of a coalition agreement, and I thank her for that. And as a consequence, I've decided to send those spokespeople home as a sign of good faith. And Sussan, as a sign of good faith, will not be announcing a shadow cabinet. This is a positive step forward, one in which we've always said we'd be productive and constructive. And I think the Nationals have acted in good faith, and as a consequence, sending those shadow spokesmen home, I'm proud to say that we'll allow this process to take place and for the Liberal Party to convene at whatever period is for them and convenient for them. And I think that is the way forward in a mature and sensible way. And I'm proud of the fact that our guys are prepared to accept that in being sent home today, despite the fact that I was about to announce to you all this afternoon our shadow spokesman, because I think this is a far more important development and one that I've always said that I'd be constructive moving forward on.
So you're getting back together?
So
you're getting back together?
No, this will allow time for a process for Sussan Ley to call her party room together to discuss those four policy areas that the National Party could not allow to be passed away on. They were hard fought.
So you will still need to get a firm commitment from the Liberals on all those four policy areas before you consider rejoining the coalition?
Well, we didn't do what we did on Tuesday lightly. It was a tough decision, a huge decision. And we, in a sign of good faith, I have made it clear that I'm prepared to pause my announcement today as a sign of good faith, as Sussan has made a sign of good faith of not going forward with a shadow cabinet announcement, and to allow her time to have a party room meeting. I think that's
Did you say when the party room meeting would be, Mr. Littleproud?
No, that's...
Sorry, can you just answer that? Do you need firm commitments or not?
Of course we do. I mean, and I'm pragmatic to allow that environment to be created with Sussan and her team, and I don't think that commentary around that from the National Party will help, and I think we should allow them to be able to have that in an environment where they can...
How long will you wait? How long?
David, what chance, in your estimation, that this leads to a reformation of the coalition? There must be a considerable chance for you to do what you've done, right?
Of course there is, but it also goes to the very intent of what I said from the start, that this was a tough decision. But these four policy areas are important to the lives and the livelihoods of people that I represent. And the fact that the Liberal Party room is now prepared to have that conversation, I think, speaks volumes about the fact that we should allow that to happen, and that gives every chance.
How long will you wait?
Just do this in the first place rather than rush off and just leave the coalition? Why didn't you give her time to have a party room meeting in the
Well, I didn't dictate.
Did you ask her to do this?
Well, with all due respect, Phil, this is a matter for the Liberal Party. I don't have control over the Liberal Party, but I made very clear the process that took place from the very start was predicated on the timelines that Sussan determined, taking into account her personal circumstances. And we did not rush this. It was one that she determined, and I respected that. But it was her processes and her party that determined whether they wanted to come together or not. I don't get to tell the Liberal Party they should have a meeting to determine whether they support those policies that we're holding out. The seriousness of can I just finish? The seriousness of our discussions was that there was a potential, as we followed through on, in walking away from the coalition. Now that's not a question I can answer. I can only control the processes of the National Party, and I controlled those, and I was transparent on those, and I'm proud of the way that my party room was able to come together.
How much time are you prepared to wait, though? How much time do the Liberals need?
Well, we're going to allow them the air and space to be able to do that, and as a sign of good faith, that's why I sent my shadow spokespeople home today.
But it could be a week?
Well, that's a matter. I'll allow Sussan and her team. That's a matter for the Liberal Party, and I'll allow them to do that. And I think it's important I allow them to do that rather than I demand, because I think we'll get better outcomes if we allow that to happen.
Question to Senator McKenzie.
What about on the issue of cabinet solidarity? Is this still a sticking
point? No, and it never was.
Sussan Ley seemed to suggest it was disingenuous for Bridget McKenzie to say it wasn't a sticking point.
As I said this morning, that was not taken to the party room because I accepted the written response that I got from Sussan, that it was fair and reasonable in terms of where it was. And as I said this morning, it came from the intent about the fact that the Nationals actually breached cabinet solidarity last term in the Voice. I, in my party room, got to a position on the Voice before, and I've got to say that actually hurt in some small way the relationship I had with Peter, and I lost trust, and I had to rebuild that. And I've got to be honest about that, but I didn't want that to happen again, and I want to make that clear that the only reason that was discussed, and I'm disappointed these things are percolated in the media, that these discussions should be private, but was to make sure that I didn't lose trust and that the footing that Sussan Ley had was one that was sound, and that I didn't want to have to repeat that circumstances. That was, I've got to say, that hurt Peter. And as someone I respect, I didn't think that was fair and reasonable, but it was something that our party room got to a position on, and it really did disturb me that I had to do that.
Senator McKenzie.
You will not agree to reform a coalition until you have commitments from the Liberal Party on those 4 policies.
Well, that's why we left. I don't know how more principled we can be. I mean, I have a senator standing beside me that is prepared to put her job on the line because she believes in this. I have people in my party room that are prepared to take a pay cut because we believe in this. We're not doing this for show. We're doing this because we are convicted about the people that we represent. And I would have thought that's a damn good thing that you've got people here that are prepared to give up their jobs for what they believe in. I think that speaks volumes about the people that I...
One for Senator McKenzie, please. One for Senator McKenzie.
The announcement of these portfolio allocations, do you concede that you've jumped the gun on this?
No, I was working by the process and the timelines that were given to us by the Liberal Party. I can only work on the premise that we got to our determination because of the timelines that were given to us. We made that determination, and as I said, I wasn't prepared to stand still. If we made our decision, I had to move forward. That's why I made the decision to bring these people to have a planning meeting and to potentially announce their roles this afternoon. But out of respect of a changed process by the Liberal Party, which I appreciate, I'm going to show and reciprocate that appreciation by sending them home and allowing them to undertake their process. And that's up to the Liberal Party. I can't control their processes. I can only control my own.
But will there be no agreement until you get a yes on those 4 policies? Is that still the line of things?
Well, that's why we left. You understand?
So it's still the line of
that's why we left. Yes. That's why we left.
One for Senator McKenzie.
Policies like nuclear have got to go through the Liberal Party. They're under review or about to be under review. They're subject to review. If it is a no, what then? Well,
this is my understanding that they're allowing their party room to understand and to have input into
that. Do you respect that process? Is it too early to say we're not going to get back together if it's a no?
Well, this is why the Liberal party room needs to meet, and they need to be able to make these judgments themselves. As I brought my team together, and I didn't make the unilateral decision to leave the coalition. It was one of the collective. And I'm presuming that is the process of the Liberal Party, and I respect that. And I think the best thing I can do is allow that to happen, because we want a coalition. But these are principles that are dear to our people, and I welcome this as a sign of good faith. And that's why I'm reciprocating with the sign of good faith, that I'm pausing us moving forward as a national party alone, because I would prefer to be in a coalition.
This timeline seems somewhat contested. This morning you said you had a party room that couldn't wait, but Kevin Hogan said there was no rush. So why was the timeline of this? You said that you had a party room that couldn't wait for an answer, but Kevin Hogan said that there was no rush. So why was this decision made with haste on Tuesday
because the timeline that they were talking about was months away. It was a review of all policies. Now, the convention of the coalition is that all policies that were taken to election remain on the table, and they are taken out by exception. That was one that Sussan took the step to say she did not want to accept and wanted to take them all off. I accepted that as a sign of good faith, as a concession, but made it clear that these 4 were very, very important to us. So I haven't dictated any of the timelines in this. We have been respectful of the processes that Sussan, as the leader of the Liberal Party, wanted to determine, and I think that's only fair and that's only reasonable, and that's how you have the potential to get good outcomes.
Can you just confirm, for the record, did you ever consider breaking out of the coalition as you now have before the last election?
No. I mean, I don't know. This is the thing is, there's a lot of backgrounding going on when there are only 4 people in the negotiations, and I get that, unfortunately, we have to consult other people, and some of those aren't as scrupulous as those 4 that were in that room. And there's a lot of history being made from people that weren't in the room. So I think it's been very, very careful. Very careful, and I've been very respectful.
You never considered it?
No.
One for Senator McKenzie, if we can. A letter you sent to Michaelia Cash has been leaked. What do you make of that letter being leaked? And also, have you wanted to split from the coalition since Jacinta Price defected?
I wrote to the leader of the Liberal Party in the Senate post Jacinta Price saying she's leaving the National Party to head off to the Liberal Party, reflecting with the leader of the Liberal Party in the Senate that would cause us issues as the National Party Senate room. We have till the June the 30th to actually resolve those issues, and so I was flagging with Michaelia that we need to have a resolution to that. With respect to leaking letters, there's been a lot of leaking going on, it would seem, of texts, of letters, of conversations. I don't think it's in anyone's interest for those matters to be leaked because it actually breaches and breaks trust.
So,
what exactly does the Liberal
Can I
Party...
ask a question? I feel like there's been a lot of blokes that have been asking questions. It'd be nice if I could ask a question. Patricia Carvella, thank you very much. I've just observed this. I'd actually like to ask you, David Littleproud, actually, if you don't mind. Bridget, I'll ask you in a moment because I've been trying to get in, as you know. In terms of the time frame, you say a couple of months they were going to take to review their policies.
More than that.
A long time, I get it. The Belder report took 6 months. Yeah, it does take a while. I get that. So what sort of time frame are you hoping this might be truncated into?
Well, let's work through the practicalities of this. If you want to appoint a shadow cabinet, Parliament will sit before the end of July. So I think there's some clear timelines without having to define them. But anyone
before July.
Well, before Parliament sits, that's when you need a shadow cabinet. I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption to make. And I think that would be the intent of everybody, because it would be great to walk in as a shadow cabinet together, and that's the process that will now happen. But I don't want to put specific days or weeks on it. I don't think that's constructive. I think this is a positive development. One that does show good faith, and that's why I wanted to reciprocate today by sending these people home.
Just on nuclear, what exactly do the Liberals need to commit to in your opinion?
We've always said a technology agnostic approach. We've got to be honest and reflect on what was taken to the election. I think the $600 billion perpetrated lie by Anthony Albanese, predicated on the Smart Energy Council report, who donates to the Labor Party and who are funded by those who get money from renewable energy, didn't and shouldn't have been used in the way that it was, or weaponised, rather than the Frontier report that clearly showed a mixed grid that we were proposing was $330 billion, $263 billion less than what theirs was. But we weren't good enough at selling that. We've got to put your hand up and acknowledge your mistakes. But what you've got to be able to do is say, do we pivot in terms of what that looks like and how do we roll that out as making technology agnostic approach? But I think what you've got to do is you've also got to be pragmatic. These scare campaigns that the Labor Party run are brilliant. They're masters at it. They don't have a lot in policy depth, but they're very good at scare campaigns. And you are going to have to be geographically limited, otherwise you're going to see a scare campaign that we'll see one at Noosa or we'll see one at Ayers Rock. I mean, that is the pure old politics that we see, but it wins. We saw that in the election.
So is lifting the ban enough?
Well, we've always said that we want to see a technology agnostic approach, and removing the ban is a significant step that would mean that we could have a technology agnostic approach.
She wouldn't need to commit to state-built nuclear reactors.
No, and we've been very public about that from the start, very pragmatic about saying you've got to look at the results. I mean, they're pretty raw. We're copping it, we copped it. So you've got to be pragmatic. about what that looks like. But we've always, and in fact, former coalition, since I've been here, have always said we've got a technology agnostic approach to energy, and I don't think we should close our minds off because an all renewables approach cannot work, and we are the ones that bear the consequence of that in regional Australia, and that's why it's important.
The Liberals and Nationals have been beating each other up in the press for the last few days. Bridget McKenzie has just said the leaking of that letter breaches and breaks trust. How can it possibly be that you and the Liberals can get together in any sort of meaningful, sensible relationship to be the next government of Australia?
Because Susan and I are leading, and I know that it hasn't come from Susan or her chief of staff or my chief of staff or myself. We have ended these negotiations from the start when she initiated them in good faith, and I believe, without doubt, in a way that has respected how those negotiations should take place. So I get, as I said, there's peripherals that get privy to some information and make it difficult, and then spin whatever angle. But I'm going to be bigger than that. You know what? Yes, we can, because I can trust Susan. And that's why she took a leap of faith today and took a step forward and said that she's prepared to go back and to bring her party room back.
That's a
in light of that letter, if that's okay. Do you acknowledge that?
We're interrupting to farewell our ABC TV viewers. You can continue watching this over on the ABC News channel.
No. And you're not privy to these sort of negotiations, and I've been to a couple of them now and part of them. There are wide-ranging requests around how a coalition approach when you do these negotiations. Not all of them come through, and that's why they're never put in the public domain, and that's a set of negotiations. And we accept some of the positions that come back. We don't. We negotiate back on this. The only thing that was taken to our party room were those four policies. That is what predicated our decision on Tuesday. Thank you.
Mr. Littleproud, there are huge parts of this country flooding at the moment.
Nationals leader David Littleproud surrounded by